We're going to talk about the moving property of an emitter. Here's a node emitter, the default being these simple spheres, and you can see that it is emitting as I move it around. And this is very helpful for all kinds of things, whether you're emitting a sound when you move, or maybe particles that are specific to your motion, or you kind of want to leave a trail behind something. I've used this to be kind of to be like a physics follow behind kind of onion skin of like the paraboloidal path that something flies through. As an example, if I take this object that I'm being emitted, the sample, and I deactivate its rigid body, you'll see it's now sort of drawing since the sphere doesn't fall, it follows and it sort of leaves this path in space. And if I cranked out cranked up the max simultaneous to something larger, we now kind of get this path. And you could vary the color based on the velocity of something, based on its height, anything like that. And it starts to get fairly interesting once you're emitting very dynamic objects, unit plus timeline animations. It's pretty interesting. So I'm going to show you just how to set this up. It's really easy. I'll just go from a new scene. So you're going to put in a node emitter and press play, and you'll see the thing that by default, I like to rotate it so they don't stack up. The thing that and I'll commit the transform changes with Control T since we're in playtime. The node emitter starts with it's being driven by the constant pulse, and the constant pulse is one pulse per second. And right, if you increase that number, you're going to get a lot of items, but you only get the maximum amount that can be out there simultaneously, and the other ones will fade out based on your fade logic. If you want more in the space, crank up max simultaneous. But moving works in addition to this pulse. So if you crank up the emit rate, you'll see that I am also emitting when I move the object. And if I don't want the pulse, I can come and select none under continuous. If I want to turn off that pulse, I'll select none. And now now I'm just using the on move amount. And if I turn that emit rate way up, it's going to be this huge bundle of them every time this thing moves ever so slightly. So playing with that emit rate can give you varying results. So that's the move, and I'll show it to you as well with a particle emitter. And so same kind of concept, just slightly different with the particle emitter. It's emitting a particle. Let's see, its continuous pulse is 5 of these particles per second. You can crank particles up way more. That's why there's a 5,000 simultaneous for a particle. You can get a lot more in the space than the node. You could have a lot bursting out at once. This constant pulse could be, if I hold down shift to scroll this way out, you could have a lot coming out at once. And that's sort of what it might basically look like. Okay. Crank those up, it starts to look a little bit more gaseous and smoky, steamy, I guess. However, if I want this to only emit on moving, we'll just work that, turn the pulse down to none, and we will do these emit rate, crank it way up, these items actually have a little bit of illumination, self-illumination on them. The material of the particle, you could change that, but that's why you see the auto exposure kind of dimming on them. I'll change this emit rate down a little bit. Maybe that won't happen so much. Go into the particle material. It's their additive quality. Additive looks cool, but it will add up. Knock the opacity down. So you go, the on move value property for the particle and node emitter. Pretty cool.